And ride with me in my foul life.
Podcast world, what's up? We're back at you. Another episode of the Foul Life Podcast, presented and brought to you by our friends at Gerber Gear. Stay sharp, America. Use everything you see at gerbergear.com, whether you're building a blind, whether you're cutting meat off the bone. I don't care if it's an elk, a deer, a duck, a goose, a pheasant. They have the tool that you're going to need to be a provider. That's why we lean on Provider Gear by Gerber every single day. They stay sharp, they keep an edge, and we truly entrust in them on a daily basis, whether we're on the road or at home in our kitchen, our backyards. Thank you, Gerber Gear, for supporting the lifestyle and the culture of the foul life and the provider. Today's episode I'm excited about because we get to mix a little bit of some of my favorite things: athletics, specifically MMA and fighting, goose hunting, specifically specks and snows in California rice country, with the man, the myth, the legend himself, Rock Merlo. I got my brother Clay Belding and two of my good friends from the fight world, Chad Money Mendes and Dan Hendo, the All-American Henderson. Thank you all for being here. What's up, fellas?
What's up?
What's up?
What's up, guys?
Hendo, I got to start with you real quick. We were just sitting down on the couch, and Mendes and Clay, you can fill in on this. We're watching some highlight reels, and I know that Hendo's is, like, even the guy said it, right, Mendes? They said Hendo's one of the most humble fighters of all time, and you're the same way. When you see that, Henderson, when you sit there and watch that, has it happened before where you get stuck in a room with a bunch of like fans just fanboying out over you? Does it get old, or do you like to relish and relive those moments? I mean, we watched your top 5 knockouts. We watched Bisping 1 and 2. We saw Vanderlei Silva. We saw unbelievable fights, and your career is so it's just a legacy, right? Does it bother you to sit in a room like that, or how do you feel?
No, honestly, it never happens. So I mean, you were the fanboy today. but it was good to see those. I mean, I hadn't seen some of those fights in probably 15 years. And it was kind of cool to go back down memory lane. I guess every once in a while it's always good to make sure you remember things.
Mendes, you're 15 years younger than Hendo. He is literally a pioneer, even though he's still young at heart. I mean, he's a pioneer of the game. He's a trailblazer. I mean, this dude has knocked out Fedor. He has knocked out the Axe Murderer. He's been in Pride. He's been in Strikeforce. He's UFC. When you're around him, I know you're friends, but as he called me a fanboy and my brother Clay a fanboy, do you fanboy out when you're around somebody like Hendo because you respect his career so much, or how do you think of a guy like Hendo, Mendes?
I taught Hendo everything he knows.
In the future,
it's really cool. I mean, me and Dan have been buddies for a few years now, and I mean, obviously, when I was still in the college wrestling game and looking up to all these guys, knowing that I was going to get into the sport, Dan was definitely one of the guys I followed a lot. I mean, his explosiveness, his speed, and obviously because he was a top-level wrestler was something that always drew me to him. So he was definitely fun to watch throughout his entire career and even my career jumping into the UFC game. So, I enjoy being around Dan. Dan comes and does a lot of our fins and feathers trips with us, and it's fun to get out and do some hunting and fishing with Dan all the time. So,
do you study as a up-and-coming wrestler, guys like him? As far as I know, you study fight film, and see what your opponent's going to do. But do you look at? I mean, he's like a top wrestler growing up, right? Do you go and look at his film and say, that I do that move a little different, or how did he do that move, or anything like that, or do you just go with your coaches at the time?
No, I think what was so cool about Dan was, I think our styles were. There's a lot of similarities with our style. Obviously, kind of the upper body type wrestlers. I mean, he was a badass Greco wrestler, just mean in the clinch, but he throws those heavy bombs, and coming out of college, I remember watching him and I'm like, God, I want to get that overhand down like Dan has. Like, I want to knock people out like that, and it took me a while in the beginning of my career to kind of figure that out. I relied solely on my wrestling, which I think is different than Dan, because you go back and see some of his first fights, and he was coming out swinging from the start, just dropping fools with those.
Yeah, but I wasn't landing punches that often. I mean, it took me a while. It took me a while to get my timing right and figure out what works, what doesn't work. But I mean, I use my wrestling a lot at the first 2-3 years for sure.
Did you come out swinging thinking?
I didn't know anything about. I had never sparred until after I fought in the UFC. I never even sparred.
So I was thinking like little reverse psychology that your opponent thinks you're going to come in wrestling and take down, and here you are. I'm going to start throwing. I definitely use that to my advantage a couple times early on, without people knowing anything about me other than I was a wrestler. Mm-hmm. I would fake a shot and throw my overhand and knocked a lot of good guys down with that. But I didn't know how to finish anybody, and that was the only punch I knew how to do at the beginning. So.
If you look at we talked about Matt Hughes, who's a friend of all of ours, and Matt was known as a wrestler, and he defended the title a bunch. But Matt was never a handsy guy. He didn't have good stand-up as far as he could shoot in and pick you up and throw you, and he was known for carrying you across the octagon and slam you, but he was never the guy that could stand there and put together a combination like you guys can. Then you go to somebody like GSP, martial arts, but he had a wrestling background, but he still didn't have that H-bomb, and he didn't have the Chad Mendes quickness of the hands. My point in saying all that is that you guys kind of took the best of both worlds, because in my opinion, there's nothing sweeter of a science than boxing. To watch Tyson or Floyd Mayweather or Joe Louis or whoever, I love seeing a good boxer throw hands. But to mix it with wrestling, which is the oldest Olympic sport of all time, the foundation of MMA is wrestling. If you're not a wrestler, it's going to be tough to be successful in MMA, in my opinion. You guys had it whipped, right? You guys could fake the high crotch, fake the double leg, fake the single leg or the ankle pick, and then come over the top with the H-bomb or put that combination together. It's unstoppable. That's why I think that you guys were able to get so many guys scared of the wrestling and then lay them out with the hands. Is that fair to say?
No, I agree. And I think it's guys like you too that made it difficult for me in the beginning of my career to.
Are you pointing at Hendo or me?
Hendo.
Oh, I thought you were pointing at me.
You got guys like that come off that high level wrestling like that come into a sport and just demolish people like he was doing. Dude, I had so many fights in the beginning of my career where we would try to keep stuff offline because they would do some research. Oh, he wrestled. Yeah. I'm out. I even had guys, I would not show up to weigh-ins. I cut the entire weight, go to the fight, and I'm just sitting there waiting on weight, and they just never showed up. Wow. And it's because of guys like Dan. I blame you, Dan.
Damn Dan.
Damn it, Dan.
Damn it, Dan.
But no, it was tough. It was really tough in the beginning.
Maybe
I don't know if you guys
scary
had.
Looking.
Yeah, maybe it was these beautiful ears,
Do you guys ever do wrestlers ever compare ears?
Midget.
Do you guys ever compare ears?
His wins.
Well, I want to ask a question about cauliflower ears, though.
Yeah.
Looking at yourselves in the mirror today,
Oh, God.
at your age now, do you wish you would have wore headgear every fight? Do you wish you didn't have cauliflower ears, or is it kind of that mark of your career?
Hell yeah.
Badge of honor.
It's a trophy.
So. Yeah,
it is
a trophy. Yeah,
because I wish I had them. Because I got the most.
I can give them to you.
Yeah,
I got the
Me and
worst
Dan
ears.
can take care of that.
We can handle that tonight.
With what part of your body? Everybody's heard of the Canadian story.
I already tried one part of my body that didn't work. For you, so I'll try different.
We're gonna have to use something a little harder.
So
sorry, I wasn't so excited that night.
Hendo, I want to switch gears a little bit because we have an audience on this podcast of The Foul Life that's really geared towards what it says, waterfowl. Okay, so there's a big part of our friendship that comes from hunting. I would not know Mendes if it wasn't for a mallard duck, because a mallard duck brought me to Louisville to the NRA convention one year, and I got to meet him through some mutual friends. Scotty Lego, they were on Weatherby's team together, and then Jordan Harbitson, one of the founders of Mountain Ops. Hendo I would not meet because of my other love of baseball. I met Hendo through Ryan Klesko, who I watched, a lefty swinger, right-handed thrower, first baseman, Atlanta Braves, San Diego Padres. Love Klesko to death. One of the most humble human beings. I love that dude.
But we wouldn't have met if it wasn't for hunting.
Yeah, SHOT Show. So
I'm talking about even Klesko. I met him because of hunting.
You met Klesko because of hunting.
That's cool.
So it all comes back to this lifestyle of being a hunter. I know that I'm jumping ahead a little bit, Hendo, but I wanted to ask you this because I've been in Canada with you. I've been in Oklahoma with you. I've been all over at different shows with you, whether it was Nashville or whether it was Vegas or San Diego and Temecula at your own places. But there was that point that we pulled onto that levee that night in California, and we were scouting the night before our goose hunt. And we had just experienced some days with a great man, Larry Gurry, at Closed Zone Farms, but it was weird. It was just a different time of the year. The ducks weren't cooperating. And then all of a sudden we had this opportunity for this big goose grind. When you get that opportunity, Hendo, specifically you, Hendo, and we pulled up on that levee the night before the hunt, do you get excited when you see that stuff? Because you're so like nonchalant. Yeah. Like you didn't even show it in your fights. When you're going into your biggest fights, you're just like, yeah, well, whatever. You just grin a little bit. Does this lifestyle of seeing those? I'm gonna blame it all
on the Botox.
does the lifestyle of being up in those binoculars, those spot scopes, and seeing the power of those birds get you excited?
Absolutely. I mean, I was totally excited. I'm sorry you didn't feel it.
I'm not saying I didn't. I just can't recall that night. I was
excited. I mean, I was a lot more excited then than it would be like the night before a fight or whatever. I mean, or right before a fight. Maybe not right after a good fight. I mean, that was a different feeling. But I was totally excited the night before, watching all those birds get up off that field and fly away, knowing that they're going to come back that next day. I was like, holy shit.
There's a lot of birds.
I'm so excited for the morning. And it was kind of weird the next morning. I was like expecting like this huge flock, but they were coming in like a bunch of small groups.
Which is better, I think.
Yeah, no, it turned it out. I mean, we just kept our numbers going all day long, but I mean, it was a fun hunt, and sorry, my excitement didn't show.
No, I'm not saying that it didn't. It's just that you were so.
I'm pretty even keel.
Because he's the exact like Mendes gets excited. Mendes is that guy that comes out punching his gloves. He comes out. He's not a shit talker, but you know that Chad's animated. But so Mendes, when you are part of that lifestyle of seeing those geese, and I'm just talking the anticipation of the hunt. You love turkey hunting. Your Fins and Feathers is known for you catching tuna, salmon, some stripers, and killing some big game. But it's not really known for waterfowl. Mm-hmm. A lot of people don't know that you waterfowl hunt. Do you love it? And what do you love about it? Is that a good depiction of what it takes to get you fired up of seeing that many geese in a field?
Oh, man, I was ecstatic. I mean, I love all hunting. I mean, there's obviously different styles and different things that I put more time into, I guess I can say. But I love waterfowl hunting. Like how often do you get to go to a field like that the night before and see that many geese in one spot? Like, if that doesn't get you excited, something's wrong with you. But no, man, we got out there that next morning and at one point, I actually put my gun down because we'd already had I don't even know how many groups come in. And I had to get my phone out and just be like, no one's going to believe this. So I had to sit there and film. And it started in front of me and went all the way back as far as my eye could see. And they were just thousands of them, And I mean, how often does someone get to see that? I even said that day, that might be the one. That might be the best, the best goose hunt I'm ever going to go on. So, no, I was for sure excited. I was, pumped to get out there and, obviously we see him that night before. It's hunting. Maybe something spooks him off the water. Something could happen. But I still went to bed that night just excited as hell.
I think Chad Belding kind of has definitely ruined me to go do anything else with anyone else, because the first hunt was in Oklahoma that I went on with you, and we limited out almost every morning or every day for ducks and geese, I think.
Yeah, we did.
3 days in a row, 4 days in a row.
Thanks for the invite.
And he not just limited out, but I remember editing the footage. It was hundreds of mallards sitting on here at once.
It was unbelievable. Yeah, that was my very first waterfowl hunt ever, and that was my first experience. And
oh, this is easy.
Yeah.
What do you guys?
Is this how it is every time? But no, I knew that I had it lucky, but I definitely have been spoiled in that way. Like, it's going to be hard to top those things. You should have got me on some shitty hunts first.
But here is there a difference that you can recall, Hendo, of in Oklahoma you can kill 5 Canadas and then you're done, and then you can kill 5 or 6 mallards, probably 6, and you're done. In California, on that specific goose hunt, and Mendes, you can touch on this, and Clay, you can touch on this too, is that you get 20, 25 snows per man, and you get 10. This is the kicker right here. 10, like Arkansas's got a lot of specs. Louisiana's got a lot of specs. Texas has a lot of specs. Those birds max you can kill 3 to 4. I think Texas maybe 4. Wow. Arkansas's 3. Louisiana's 2 or 3. Yeah. California kill 10 per man per day. And on top of that, they're the best eaten waterfowl there is. Some people say the sandhill crane. I'm going with the rice-fed speck in California. That's what was cool about that hunt, is that the specs are coming in, and then all of a sudden 100 snows are on top of you. And I don't even know how many boxes of shells we shot, but y'all shot a lot, right, Hendo?
Probably too many.
Probably too many. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I only shot 1 box because I hit 20.
20. I looked back at the picture that we took that day of that hunt, and when I listened to Hendo talk about being spoiled, you think about how special those days are. Because the 2 days before that, we had a blast.
Right.
Mr. Larry worked his butt off
for sure.
That's one of the best habitats
still a
in
good
California.
day doing something else.
You know what I'm saying? It's all you're fishing, you're hunting, you're barbecuing. Some guys like golf. Some guys like Tom and Tyson. These guys love being in the snow on the mountain. I'm not against any of it, but there's something about hunting that's just like, dang it, man, that was freaking incredible.
Powerful.
It is. You get to see that sunrise.
Sure.
I remember that first morning even duck hunting, and I'm just like, there's ducks everywhere. I can see them everywhere. And that first light starts shining through. You got that cold, crisp air. Just how often do you get to get up and get outside and be in that type of situation outside of hunting, And it's just something a lot of people probably don't get to feel or be a part of most of their life, because it's like, when is that anyone's like routine,
So speaking of routine and what people don't get to realize or feel in their life, Mendes, what do you feel like when you see Hendo do that on the knees, on the ground uppercut, under the right armpit of Fedor Emelianenko? Emelianenko, is that correct? Emelianenko. When you see that punch, they're on their knees.
Dude.
And he swings from up under his armpit with his right and hits him perfectly on the jaw and knocks Fedor, who's a legend, right? He's one of the best of all time. Have you guys ever heard that joke? I don't remember who said it, but they said when Fedor walks out, he looks like he's in a museum. Because he'd just be like, look. Have you ever seen Fedor walk out? He looks like that.
Never paid attention to
Have you ever seen him walk out? He looks like he's in a museum just looking at pictures and shit. But Hendo knocks him out from his knees.
Yeah.
He's one of the toughest guys in the world. He's like the Ivan Drago of MMA, right? Rocky IV.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you're training against. What do you think about when you see something like that, Mendes? Like, do you want that?
Oh, hell yeah. But I think what I'm more impressed about is the fact that it was basically a reversal into a scramble with a uppercut punch knockout in the mix of all of that. It's not like he got on him and held him for a second and just threw one. It was like, it all happened so fast. Like, I'm on the bottom, now I'm on top, and you're knocked out.
Situational awareness.
I remember watching that fight, and I was actually nervous for Dan.
Were you there that night?
Everybody that I know,
I don't know if I was
nervous
there, but
for me, except for me.
Yeah,
you were nervous.
Not at all. I was calm and just.
What's he's a lot bigger than you, right?
He was 25-ish pounds. He was actually lighter than he normally was.
My weight is a lot. Yeah.
He's a big guy.
I had to gain a little.
How respectful was he, though, Hendo? Was he?
He doesn't say much anyway, and he's never disrespectful. He's not overly talkative, but I've always liked him. Back in the Pride days, his brother had fought a few times, and when I was better friends with his brother than him, or talked to his brother a lot more. His brother was a lot more talkative, and I knew a lot better then than I do now, but I spoke Russian pretty well. So
you spoke Russian,
and I would
really?
always,
I didn't know that.
In the locker rooms,
Tell us more, man.
You must be
in
Russian.
the locker rooms, they'd always bring vodka, so we'd be doing shots of vodka back there.
Nice.
That's cool.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh man, I didn't know. Can you really speak Russian?
I used to. I can't remember.
Really?
I remember something.
Back in the wrestling days?
I've been to Russia maybe 25 times.
Wow.
My longest trip there was about 6 months.
Oh, so you had to learn
4
it.
months, sorry. My average trip was probably 3 weeks.
Wow.
All for wrestling.
Yeah.
And then I took a year of Russian in school.
That's
at
pretty cool.
ASU after that.
Learned something new about you today.
Being
Dan.
the fighter that you are, Dan, and the fight fan that you are, when you see a fight like Chad when he fought Connor, or Chad when his fight with Jose Aldo got fight of the year, you're bigger.
I thought he won.
You're bigger. You're a Greco-Roman Olympian. Chad's a world-class collegiate wrestler with hands.
Don't worry about that.
What do you think of the I don't know if you call it the smaller class Hendo or the lighter weights, but when you see somebody like Mendes put together what he did in that first round against McGregor, stepping in on 10 to 12 days notice, I don't know the exact amount of hours, but it was not a very long camp, 10 days, or the Jose Aldo fight. Do you get excited for the little guys when they're doing that? Because like I'm 50 pounds heavier than Chad Mendes. He knocks me out in under a minute.
I always got excited to watch Chad fight.
Before you knew him?
Yeah, I mean, before I met him, we had mutual friends that would talk about being with him and stuff, but I don't think I ever personally met him. But I was always a fan, and obviously, even without any mutual friends, because he was from the wrestling world, I'm always rooting for the wrestlers in MMA. Yeah. So, I'd always try to watch his fights.
Just so when you see,
and I would get excited to watch certain guys after watching him fight a couple times. I enjoyed watching him fight.
So were you watching Mendes in the WEC days before that? You weren't.
No.
So you just knew him as a UFC guy.
Yeah.
So when did he come on the map in Dan Henderson's eyes? Was it the McGregor night?
No, it was way before that. A couple of years before that, probably.
So what did you like about his style when you would get fired up? Regardless of whether you had mutual friends or not.
I mean, I went through the process early on in my career, and back then there was no coaches, no MMA coaches. There was boxing coaches, there was kickboxing coaches, wrestling coaches, and jiu-jitsu coaches, but there was no MMA coaches back. Nobody knew anything when the first sport started happening. It was so far back when I started that I kind of had to learn what would work and what didn't as a wrestler. And, for me I went through that process of figuring it out and figuring out how to be exciting and finish guys. Wrestling doesn't finish a fight at all. It controls guys. But it doesn't finish fights. You either got to be really good at submissions or knocking the guy out. And, I kind of gravitated towards striking part of that because I hit hard. And it took me a while to figure out how to put it all together. And watching some of these guys like Uriah Faber also. I remember being at one of his fights when he was fighting locally in Fresno, I think. And I think Randy and I were both there, and after the fight, I was like, "Dude, you got to really start stepping up, getting in there and striking." And and he did. I mean, it's always good and fun for me to look at that process as a wrestler. Other wrestlers trying to put together the striking, and some never do.
No,
or some take 5 years to do it, and they're not very exciting along that way until they start.
Give me three more real quick off the top of your head, and I know that I'm putting you on the
wrestlers.
Spot. Give me three more wrestlers that put that striking together. Because I'm thinking of Johnny Hendricks. I don't know if he did.
Hendricks, I thought his
did
striking
Johnny
was
put
really
together?
Johnny did.
Koscheck had good striking.
I was going to say Koscheck, but Koscheck.
He's.
And sometimes they forget that they're wrestlers, which is a bad thing too.
Yeah.
And that's what cost Koscheck, I think, at the end, where he was good, but he would get caught because that's all he would do, and he wouldn't take advantage of the fact that he's a much better wrestler than these guys.
Because he was Oklahoma State, was he OSU?
Yeah, Oklahoma State.
Was he a champion?
Wait, Koscheck? Sorry, I thought.
Or Penn State.
Oh man,
I don't know where he went to school.
I don't think he was at Oklahoma State. I was thinking of Henderson.
See, if we were Joe Rogan, we would have somebody fact check us right now and just be hey Ty, can you please check out Josh Koscheck?
Yeah.
How do you spell his name? Is it Cross or Kosh?
Koscheck.
Koscheck.
It'll pop up if you just
Josh Koscheck Wrestling College. Okay.
What's the fact?
Where did he wrestle in college? Okay, so you got Koscheck and Johnny Hendricks were the first two that came to my mind of wrestlers that were badasses.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't call Chuck Liddell a badass wrestler, even though he did wrestle in college.
He was a wrestler.
But
He came from wrestling.
He came from, I think, from
I never saw him take anybody down.
Striking before wrestling.
That's true.
Or maybe both, but
he
never
wrestled in
used
college.
He used his wrestling to stand his feet.
Did he ever take anybody down in MMA?
I'm
Yeah,
sure.
I think
I
he
don't
did.
remember him taking anybody down.
I'm sure.
I think he
did,
took. I think he took Vanderlei down a couple times when they fought in the UFC.
He
Gotcha.
did, huh?
I'm
I
pretty
just
sure.
remember strikes against him and Babalu. He was just hitting him with that right.
Was Couture? I mean, he had.
And Randy was. I was going to say is another one that he was my main training partner.
Yeah,
throughout my
Randy's got to
career,
be up there.
or the first half of my career, and we kind of had to learn it. We learned it together at the same time. He'd figure something out and show me, and I'd figure shit out and show him, and we trained together quite a bit. We had trained together for 5 years in wrestling and Greco just before we started fighting. So
Josh Koscheck was a Division I champion at 174 pounds in his junior year and was an All-American all 4 years.
What?
At Edinburgh University of Pennsylvania.
What?
All
Wait,
4
that's
years.
That's D1.
yeah.
He was a
didn't know he
D1
was
champion.
a champ.
And an All-American all 4 years.
I mean, maybe I didn't know
And that's
that.
my point. He was a really good wrestler
You
compared
should have
to,
stuck that to a little bit more.
I mean, and early on in the UFC, all he would do is take people down and kind of, like any wrestler trying to figure it out. But then he figured out gets one or two knockouts, that head kick knockout, and then
Got away from it.
and then all of a sudden he didn't. And I get it. It's a lot more
Yeah.
fun to knock somebody out than it is to take them down and hump them.
So much easier too.
Yeah, but you got to never forget that you know how to wrestle. Wrestling opens up so much more striking.
Was John Jones wrestler in college?
Yeah, he wrestled.
So he's got to be. I mean, he's not a huge striker, but he's
a big-time striker.
I mean,
well, now he
elbows
is.
and he's a
yeah,
striker.
now he is. I'm just saying
Yeah.
how he
He didn't come from striking.
didn't come from
but
striking,
No, his
yeah.
striking. is good.
The worst MMA career of all time, in my opinion. Like literally ruined his career. Probably
hard
didn't
to
need
say.
to do the PEDs. No. He got in a lot of trouble.
was like,
extra
Yeah, I think that ruined his legacy 100%.
I mean,
the
like,
mind-
I don't even want to watch him fight anymore because it's just like, wow, he's incredible. And then the next morning you're like, holy
Yeah,
shit, he did it
what
again.
is it? 3 or 4 chances now?
I can't say anything because I've.
Chad, I don't want to
trouble,
get off on I don't want to get off on a road of John Jones being undisciplined because I'm sure that he's. I sat in a hot tub in San Diego I was doing an event called Hunt Fish Feed. We were feeding the homeless in San Diego. I did like 7 cities that year, and San Diego was one of them. And UFC happened to be there that night. And I met John Jones. He was staying at the same hotel, and he was cooler than heck. Don't want to get off that track. I'm just saying that I don't know the man that well. The one time I met him twice actually. I met him on the card that Scotty Jorgensen fought Uriah Faber for the Ultimate Fighter after the show. I was in Vegas for that fight. He's always been a good dude, but he just seems a little bit undisciplined. Speaking of discipline, when those geese come in and they're in there in like 2,000 at a time, right? 300. I don't even know how many there were. There was a lot. I get so excited.
Lots of thousands.
I get so excited when I talk about fighting and geese.
I think Belding was a little too disciplined. Wasn't calling the shots
didn't-
early enough.
He
that is
definitely
true.
was too disciplined.
I do get pretty
We don't
disciplined.
hunt with a lot of people
Let's
now
let him
because
go
of that.
one more time. I'm like, they're 10 yards above us.
Okay, so I admit I'm bad at that, but I just want to preface this by saying I have a huge respect for John Jones. I'm not saying I could kick he would kill me in a fight. I think he's a great fighter. I just don't agree with a lot of the shit he's done. But when it comes to discipline, do you flock shoot into a flock like that, Chad? Be honest, because when you're shooting at turkeys, you got one target. When you're shooting at a deer or an elk or a sheep, you have one target. When you have a multitude of targets right in front of you,
tough.
the number one thing that somebody like Tom Knapp, who was a legendary shotgun shooter, said was you have to pick out your target and shoot at that target. there could be 300 targets in front of you at 15 to 30 yards. I want both of you to reflect on that a minute.
Here's what happens to me.
Do you discipline yourself to stay on target?
Here's what happens to me, and I noticed it multiple times on this last goose hunt. Obviously, we're all watching the same, like, kind of the leading group that's coming in. And I always would be like, because I remember you saying this the last time we hunted, and I would see one, I'm like, all right, that's the one. I'm just going to wait. And I'm watching it, and as soon as I hear you would, say go, I'd sit up and I'd pull my gun up, and it's already dead. And I'm like, well, now I'm screwed because I'm already like starting to leave, and I'm like, like panic mode, just picking and shooting. So, I mean, I try not to flock shoot, but
It's hard.
it is very hard. When there's that many in front of you, you're like, especially that panic mode, right?
How could I miss?
Yeah, exactly. But you do.
All the
do.
time.
Especially when he doesn't call the shot till they're 5 yards
Yeah,
away.
because you're like wanting to go up, and then you're like, oh, he's not going to call it. And then when he calls you, you're like, what the hell? Why are you calling?
My abs are already tired from sitting up half.
There was multiple
doing
times
crunches.
where the first bird that I was going to shoot dropped, and then I'd move to a second one, and that one would drop. There was actually one time I remember very clearly. I didn't even get to shoot.
I was right
all
next to
three
you.
birds that I was getting ready to shoot, it dropped. And by that time, they were too far, and I just put my gun down.
I was right next to you. Sorry.
Yeah, was that you?
So,
Maybe.
Mendes, when you start thinking about the preparation for an experience like that, waking up, the gear, and let's just take it, like you archery hunt, you got your bow, you got your face paint, you got you got your base layer, you got your insulation, you got
You
your
could
outer.
have shot one of them geese with a bow.
You could. They were that
They were
close.
that close, yeah.
When you
Especially
start
when
thinking of the
landing.
preparation for a hunt, the visualization is a huge part of anything in life. Ted Williams, in The Science of Hitting, chapter 4, I believe, was visualization. If you're not visualizing what that pitcher is going to throw you, and you're not like, all right, if he throws a slider on the inner half, I'm going to hit it here. If he does this on the outer half, I'm going to let the ball get deep. As a fighter, you got to visualize. If Bisbing does this, I'm coming with the H-bomb. If he does this, I'm doing this. If Aldo does this, if McGregor does that, you got to visualize that the night before. You visualize on a hunt. You're getting ready. Talk to me a little bit, Mendes, about the similarities of your preparation for hunting snow geese, which isn't a fight. It's not a war. I don't want to dramatize hunting. It's fun, and it's about the brotherhood and the camaraderie, the sisterhood, being out there with whoever you are. And then the night before a fight or the walkout, we get out of those trucks and we're driving out in the UTVs, and you're like, oh man, this is go time. Is there any similarities? Is there anything that compares at all with the adrenaline rush of the preparation part of a hunt compared to a fight?
Oh, 100%. This is something that I get asked probably more than anything when I do any type of interviews or sit down for podcasts. I think there's tons of similarities between fighting and preparation and game planning, and that's for fighting, and hunting. Whether I'm going to chase a big bugle on bull with my bow or geese like you're talking about. I mean, a fight, you get your opponent, you watch tape, you study, you game plan on their strengths, their weaknesses, and you develop that. You practice with your weapon, and night before, especially me, and like just like you're saying, I'm visualizing like the night before a hunt. Like I know I'm going to go out and chase a big bugle and bull. I've been practicing with my weapon. I've been
Scouting
and trying to game plan. Like, okay, I've been seeing them doing this a lot of the times. There's a good chance they're going to do this. I think if I sit here, I might have a chance. They come by me or whatever it is, But same thing with a fight. You're getting ready for that opponent. You're getting ready for that animal. Practicing with my weapon, and the adrenaline. I mean, you have to learn to control that excitement, that adrenaline dump. You go out there and you're, basically blowing your wad on your excitement for a fight. You're gonna go in that first round. You're gonna crash. If you go out there and you have a big bull walk in 20 yards and you're so wound up, chances are you're probably gonna miss. And so there's so many things that are like identical as far as the fight game and hunting. And
do you think that's part of that draws you to it?
I think so. I mean, obviously I enjoy eating wild game. I think that's probably for me, like feeding my wife's like very particular on what type of meat she eats. Doesn't like really eating store-bought stuff. She'll eat all the stuff that I hunt. She even hunts herself. So And that means a lot to me. And obviously I enjoy eating. I've seen the health benefits. I've seen how I feel during my training camps, eating a lot of really bad stuff compared to lean, organic, wild game stuff. And I can tell in my training, even in fights, when that stuff's off. So, it means a lot to me being able to eat that stuff. But yeah, I think there's a ton that still draws me to that same feeling that I get when I'm walking out to the octagon and all the preparation that goes into it, that a lot of that stuff that people that don't hunt don't really think about. And that's what means so much to me, I think, with both hunting and fighting.
Hendo, when you think about what Mendes just said and what I asked him.
Well, the only difference would be between the fighting and the visualizing of fighting and visualizing of hunting is he's visualizing the hunt after 2 or 3 cocktails for sure.
Hendo, do you think that, I don't want to say do you think that, but talk to me a little bit about game plan and how easy is it? Because when I go into a hunt, I have a game plan. Like I know where the birds were in the field. I know where the birds were on the water. I know what the coyotes are doing as far as like, we know the lay of the land. Like we know that there's hills here. We know there's trees here. We know that there's rim rocks here. We know that we have an idea of the wind. We understand that they're going to go downwind and sniff us out, whatever it is. I have an idea. Mm-hmm. My main goal is not to get away from my game plan. How easy, Hendo, is it as a fighter to get away from his game plan? And would you consider yourself good at sticking with your game plan as a whole throughout the consistency of your career? Because as soon as you get hit, you're like, oh my God, I got to do something, right? Like how important is it to stick to your game plan?
Well, obviously game planning is definitely important no matter what you do in life, not just hunting and fighting, but yeah, I think sticking to your game plan it's not hard to do, but it goes back to being disciplined. You kind of gotta have a good corner that will tweak your game plan or make adjustments in the middle of a fight, or tell you that you need to get back to doing certain things that you were doing at the beginning that were working as part of your game plan. But most of the time when I fought, I'd come up with a good game plan, and the game plan is more of a guide to kind of put you doing certain things, focusing on certain things, not focusing on things that he was good at, but more to where you can control the fight and hopefully finish him in the fight. And having that as a game plan, if it's not working the way it goes, typically you kind of just adjust or react to certain things that you're not expecting. You're going to react to them, and that's where experience and the amount of practice that you've done with certain different positions are going to come into effect. So game plan is huge, especially at the beginning of a fight, but halfway through the fight, you've made adjustments. Once you've had a few minutes with him or 10 minutes with your opponent, you kind of can make those adjustments to know that certain things aren't working that I thought would work, or vice versa, or you stick with, you can make adjustments on your own, or you have your corner need to tell you, hey, that's not working, you need to do this. There's been a couple fights where I've had a game plan to go in and do certain things the first couple rounds, and once he's worn out a little bit, then I'm going to stand there and bang with him. And like when I fought Vitor, I was going to wear Vitor out the first couple rounds, get him to break, and then stand up and just beat him up the last round. And I was in the cycle of just taking him down, beating him up and I never kind of remembered to do the last part of it. And that's where I kind of was going to, my corner didn't remind me to, hey, we're going to just
beat him down enough.
Yeah.
They were too excited.
Yeah, I mean, that's one fight that sticks out as far as the game plan of it, and it was very effective to do that in the fight, but I wanted to finish him.
So has there been a fight that I imagine probably every camp, kind of go back to that reverse psychology. How many times in camp where you would study your opponent and say, okay, he's weak on the left uppercut or the sweep or whatever it is, but obviously he's watching you at the same time, right? So how many times would you come up with something new that you might have never done before in a previous fight that would work against him. You know what I'm saying? Trying to where I'm getting at. How many times would you throw something in new that you've never done before or never worked on before that your coaches would say this would really work against this guy?
For me, it wasn't even so much what my coaches would say. Sometimes during camp, like knowing a guy's strength and weaknesses. And here's a good example of that. I fought Hani Yahya, who was a master on the ground. Yeah. But I knew he loved to play guard. And he was really good at keeping guys in his guard and then working his magic as far as throwing submissions up. And so I never wanted to really be in his guard too much. But I'm like, how could I pass this dude's guard and try to take his back or do something that benefits me without like getting in there and like getting caught in submissions? And I think it was like the week or maybe 2 weeks before I was supposed to leave to the fight. And me, Joseph Benavidez, and TJ Dillashaw were sitting there kind of just drilling. It was a lighter session, and we're kind of game planning and just going over some stuff. And I was like, how crazy would it be if I just stood over this dude and did a front flip over his guard? And they're like, it sounds cool, but I just don't think it could happen. I said, watch this. And so I actually did it on TJ, or maybe it was Joe. Actually, I did it on Joe, and TJ was standing there. And we were just like, holy crap, like, you got to try that in a fight. And so, it's one of those things that's kind of dangerous, but I felt like my scrambling just from wrestling was good enough that if I got in a weird spot, I could scramble out of it. And I ended up doing it in the fight. I actually did it in 2 different fights. I did it with him and Javier Vasquez, where I did a front flip over and passed their guard. And Hani Yahya, I actually passed his guard and took his back off of it. So it actually worked really well. But that was one of those times where it was like one of those things that nobody's really done. Yeah. And I was just like, how cool would it be if I could do this? And screw it, let's try it. Another one was when I fought Aldo, slipping the jab. Like when he throws a jab, I'm slipping but dropping low to where he thinks I'm shooting, which brings his hand down, and I came up with that big uppercut. Yeah. And that was something I kind of worked on a bit through that camp and just felt that it was going to work. And we got out there, I could see his jab a lot of the times, and especially towards the end of the fight when he slowed down a bit, and we just let it rip. So I don't know. I would, through training camps, see guys kind of where I thought that, their weaknesses or whatever, and thought maybe, okay, we could try this. But what about you, Dan?
Well, I mean, everybody kind of has their tendencies of what they're good at, what they're not good at, or what they typically do a lot more of, whether they're good at it or not. So, I mean, every opponent does something a little bit different. I think later on in my career, there wasn't that big of drastic changes that, everybody was kind of similar in styles, towards the end of my career. But, towards the beginning and the middle of my career, there was a drastic change. Like, certain guys are really good at certain things and not very good at other things. So you can really focus on trying to make the fight go to where they're not good and where you're a lot better than them. So
would you say the talent, I don't know, say talent, because obviously you guys
it just got more well-rounded.
I was just going to say, so the more rounded athlete it's better nowadays than it was back
for sure.
then.
I mean, there wasn't that many well-rounded fighters the first part of my career. The middle there were, but, as it came on, everybody was really well-rounded, but they weren't great at any one thing. That's the difference between the last third of my career as the first part in the middle. I mean, there was some guys that were really great at certain things, and that's what you did not want to do. So it was a lot more important then than probably it is now, since guys are really well-rounded. They might be good at certain things, but not very many of them are great at something.
And when they made those fights back when you started, in your early career, you were a wrestler. Yeah, you were probably more towards the more rounded people when you started your career, right?
A little bit.
But they were getting to that point.
Wrestling.
You were great at wrestling, but I was saying, was it always based on ranking of who you fought, or was it early on? Was it you want to see a wrestler and a stand-up guy? How does that fight?
Pride never gave a shit about ranking. They gave a shit about what the fans would think would be the best matchup. that's why they were known for matching up little guys against big guys, especially from a Japanese culture standpoint. Most of them are smaller people, and the smaller people love to see the small guy beat the big guy. And that's why I became pretty popular, because I did fight a lot of bigger guys and did well over there. Cool. So, yeah, and to answer your question, it's, when certain guys were really good at certain things that you needed to get better at to defend, that's when I learned the most. If certain guys were different, like when I fought Paul Harris, he was really great at ankle locks and ripped people's knees off. And I got great at defending and doing leg locks, because that's all I did the whole camp.
And so when you think about what you're talking about, Hendo, of some guys were good at this, some guys were good at that. You wanted to get better at this because you weren't that good at this. You wanted to improve on this during camp. At this point in your hunting career, what has stood out that you want to excel at? What do you want to get better at? You've deer hunted with a bow. You've deer hunted with a rifle. I don't know if you've muzzle loaded hunted. You've waterfowl hunted. You've turkey hunted. What do you love about it, and what do you want to get better at so far?
Well, I mean, I don't know about Chad Mendes, but for me, hunting is more of a fun experience thing for me. It's not like fighting was my job, and I had goals to where I wanted to achieve certain things, and I was a lot more serious about it. Not that I'm not serious about hunting, but hunting is more of a release for me to go out and experience cool and different things that are fun for me to be outside. And yeah, I do get a big adrenaline rush off of, when I'm in that moment of being able to take an animal. I think that there's certain hunts that get me going a lot better than others, but I still have, I guess when I do say I have goals, it's to go to try different hunts that I haven't done before, that I know would probably be pretty exhilarating. I want to get a brown bear with a bow.
Really?
That would that would get you. Just go right to the top.
Yeah, just
I did go
straight up there.
Yeah, snow goes to a brown bear with a bow.
Hunting with a bow before, and got within 30 yards of a few of them as they're walking by, and didn't. They were wanting to get me a little bit bigger one. They were 8.5 feet. They wanted me to get more of like a 10-footer, so I didn't shoot one.
Well, that's a good
snow goose to a brown bear with a bow.
So I mean, but
that's a hard pass for me.
It's just one of those. I don't have goals in hunting to where I'm focused on different things as far as making myself better at it. I would like to, the next time we go hunting, try learning how to start calling for ducks and geese. Like I've been 3 or 4 times now with you, I think, and haven't even tried it. Although last time I think I was doing duck calls with the Aflac. Aflac.
He was the whole time.
He was.
Aflac. Anytime ducks would come in and turn to go the other way, he'd be like, Aflac.
No, I think it was geese. It was geese, right?
Oh man.
So,
that's cool. You want to learn?
But I do want to learn how to call. I know I can call an elk in pretty good.
Chad just taught me some stuff.
The last
2-3 nights, yeah.
You calling and vocalization is kind of like, I look at what you guys do, like
you're playing
the fight game.
Yeah.
There's a hunt game, right? Yeah. There's the game and everything. I think that it's almost like this. I've hunted with a lot of soldiers. Hendo, I know you've done a lot of military events, giving back to our veterans and our active military, our wounded military. Mendes, same thing. Clay's been on a lot of these with myself. You always look at him like, do you ever look down at somebody that didn't serve? Do you ever look down at somebody that didn't go over to Afghanistan or Iraq and go to war? I mean, think about that. These guys are going over there and they're fighting. They're going out there and they are putting their lives on the line. No, I don't do that. And I've never had one of them say, oh yeah, we look down on you. They're always like, no, this is what we were put on earth to do. This is what you guys were put on earth to do. This is what we were put on. I look at hunting as the same way, Dan. I'm not trying to interrupt you, but it's like, it's so like exhilarating to know that there's different levels of the games, right? It's like there's those guys that serve our country. They come over here and they get in the duck blind with us and they're just like, oh my God, this is unbelievable. And I'm sitting there going, really?
Yeah.
Like you're thanking me for taking you on a duck hunt when you just came back from Iraq or Afghanistan. Yeah. And then Hendo's sitting there going, you're thanking me for fighting a guy for money when you're sitting over there fighting for our freedoms. You know what I'm saying? It's like there's different levels of all these games. The whole thing
and
of
the
hunting,
guy could just punch me and the guy could shoot you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like how do you
feel bad.
How do you put it in perspective of what we get to do?
Sometimes that I didn't serve, but I mean
I do too.
I was focused on what I was focused on, getting better, and at that time when I was younger, wrestling, and then it turned into fighting. It just never stopped, and until I was 46 years old, it was a little too late to enlist then.
Well, I mean, like Chad's saying though, I would want to serve just because I respect them so much, but I don't think I could do it. It's just not in me. Like if it was more in you, I think you probably would like Pat Tillman, right?
No, I think I would have been pretty good at it.
You not saying you wouldn't have been good at it.
I couldn't fight though.
But I couldn't. I'm saying like Pat Tillman, right? He's in an NFL career, 4 years into it. He stops and goes do it. He has that even more will and want than we are saying we have.
The desire to
the
do
desire.
It.
I just
they
don't
love it. When they're not there, they want to be there.
Love.
That blows my mind.
Yeah.
And they
why I
come
love our
back after
military.
9 tours and they're hurt and they're injured and shot and one leg,
sure. I mean,
and all they want to do is go back.
But back to the hunt.
Yeah.
Not to disrespect our military at all, Hendo, but you touched on that is that there's all these different levels of the game. I'm a wrestler. I got to learn how to throw. I got to learn how to defend the clinch. I got to learn an arm bar. I got to learn a clinch. I got to learn all of this stuff to choke you out, to be an MMA fighter, to be a world champion. You held belts in multiple organizations. Mendes, you were a wrestler that learned to throw bombs. You learned to be able to, what you just described as front flip over a clinch. In hunting, you're doing the same thing. You're like, okay, I went on the sporting clays course, 5-stand course. I learned how to shoot a shotgun. I can hit a target, but when my adrenaline comes up, can I hit the ducks and the geese coming in? Will I not flock shot? Now I want to learn how to call. Now I want to learn the decoy spread. Now I want to go get a dog. I got Charlie Blackman, he is a badass baseball player, starting right fielder for the Colorado Rockies, all-star. Every year he's an all-star. One of the best hitters in the game. He is on a different level of happiness right now because he has a new black lab puppy. He's like, I just added this to my game, right? My arsenal. Like, there's so many different levels of the game. It's like, when does it stop?
It doesn't.
How does somebody like go, you know what?
My wife will tell you that. It doesn't.
It doesn't.
Better rifle.
It doesn't
Better
stop.
decoys.
No.
Better.
And it's especially now starting Fins and Feathers and going from the athletic side of it and being a wrestler to a fighter my whole life, and then starting Fins and Feathers. I think I'm for sure 100% gone from home more now than I've ever been in my whole life, traveling on all these different hunts and, doing stuff like this. And, I'm gone a lot and I hear it, but I get it, but this is what we live for, man. This is my dream. Like, I've worked hard my entire life to get to where I'm at now. And I feel so blessed to be able to call this my job. Like, I'm making money doing what I absolutely love. I'm going out, I'm hunting, providing food for my family, starting brands like The Provider with you. Like, this is just like a dream come true for me. So, it all comes full circle. We work hard in the beginning to get to that end goal. And, it's, to me, like I said, it's just been a true blessing.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, what's that?
When are you fighting next?
We got retired 2 years ago. But I might fight tonight if Chad pops off a couple more
That
times.
would be the worst
How old are
move
you?
of your life. He's 35.
How young are you, I should say?
35.
He's 35.
About to be 36 May 1st.
I fought till I was 46, so you got plenty of time.
You're a lot tougher than me, Dan.
No, I'm not.
No, man. You were also
maybe more
I'm
stubborn.
gonna put this out there. You were also getting paid a lot more than me.
No,
so
for sure.
For sure.
if I was getting,
I don't blame you for sticking up for not getting paid. I mean, I probably would have been there too, but I mean, you're getting paid a lot more than I was that many years into my career, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, just happened to stay fighting for 20 years.
Yeah.
But
If you beat McGregor that night,
Things would be different.
Am I wrong to say that fight could have got called in the first round, or am I presumptuous by saying that?
No, I don't think so.
He was
but
good.
no, he was good. But I remember watching that fight, and Chad took him down, was beating him up, and I was like, yeah, and then they got back up to their feet, and I see Chad go,
oh yeah,
and I was like, oh fuck,
no,
breathing through his mouth.
I knew that he took it on short notice, and that was the biggest question.
Weren't you on a boat?
Here's the thing. So I fought Aldo not that long, a few months before that, and I mean, you guys saw that fight. That was
but
the
you little
worst
guys
damage
move
I've
so
ever had in a
fast that
fight.
you got to be in shape.
Like me kicking him, my tops of my feet were just, the bones were bruised. It hurt to walk. Shins from kicking him, hitting knees, hitting elbows. Like all the muscles in my calves from taking kicks from him, my legs from taking kicks. I peed blood that night. Like I got back to my hotel room and I pissed blood. Like my kidneys were sore. Every muscle in my body after that fight for probably 2 weeks hurt. And my hands all hurt from hitting. And that lasted probably a month or two. And that was a fight, the hardest fight in my career, I think. Like I always say this, like I probably took about 10 years off my life in that fight. But I come off that fight, I'm not even in the gym. I'm like staying out of the gym, trying to let my body heal, starting Fins and Feathers and working on getting like the outdoor lifestyle started. And I was fishing. I was doing a lot of salmon fishing when I got the call from Dana. It wasn't Dana, it was my manager that called me who had spoke to Dana. And basically, hey, Aldo just injured his rib. We're 10 days out from the fight. You want to take it? And it's like, obviously, no, I don't want to take it, but how am I going to turn this down? I might go out there and knock him out with one punch.
I think you were in the position to have that fight regardless whether you took it then or within the next fight after that. Mm-hmm. They would have found somebody and you still would have been in line.
It's true.
And I think
they dangle that amount of money in front of your face, and it's like, how do you turn that down
as long as,
with the title shot?
But you also have your legacy of like, well, I'm not in shape. I'm going to be gasping. I'm going to be breathing through my mouth.
And that it's a really tough thing, especially when,
But
he's
at the point where he's trying to start his own life and support family and everything else.
Is the fight game different, Hendo? Hendo, is the fight game different with legacy? Let me preface it by saying, you could talk all the smack you want. You could raise all the hype you want. You could throw as many water bottles at Nate Diaz like McGregor's done before that you want. You could be worth all the money in the world and get a fight with Mayweather. But when Dustin Poirier knocks you out in the second round and you go down like that, is there a difference in the fight game than other sports or other lifestyles of like, I did raise this much money. I do have a good life. I'm rich, but I just got my ass kicked. I just got knocked. Like, is there a difference in the fight game? Like, your legacy is more important.
I think in your example right now with Conor McGregor has a better legacy or better rankings over the all-time greats than he should because he ran his mouth so much. Yeah. Because he's more popular. If you take his exact wins and losses and records, he shouldn't be up nearly what we were talking about earlier as far as the best of all time type of thing. Even though he did have two different belts at the same time in the UFC, which was a big accomplishment. I think without his mouth helping him gain popularity, he wouldn't have that legacy yet. I'm not saying he couldn't have that legacy, but he's still young in the sport.
If you were any bit of an athlete and you could beat people up with your brain, you would be the Conor McGregor of this sport.
You're talking about me specifically?
Yes, your brain
works on a different level.
Yeah. And
but
I wish I had that brain. But like if I had that brain with my fighting talent,
I'm the same way.
We'd be multi-billionaires.
I prefer not to talk shit. I prefer.
No, I'm not that way either.
But if you think about like the legacy, the absolute legacy of Mike Tyson had some exploits where he would go, he lost it like on the Lennox Lewis, but that was towards the end of his career. But in the beginning of Mike Tyson's career, like he would look at Bone Crusher Smith or Tony Tucker and or Michael Spinks. If you look at the face-off with Michael Spinks, he's like Hendo. He's just like, his eyes are just going back and forth. Michael Spinks is dead before the fight starts. Mm-hmm. Mike
But
Tyson is
didn't
the
have to throw water bottles and talk shit.
but Mike Tyson is the most popular fighter of all time. There's an argument with Muhammad Ali because of the politics. I get that. But when a couple of years ago, when Lennox Lewis, Evander Holyfield, and Mike Tyson walked into that ring that night when they were doing the 50 all-time greats or whatever, the crowd lost its mind when they saw Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson went to prison for you know what. He lost to Buster Douglas in Tokyo. He should have never lost that fight. He was at 20 years old, the undisputed heavyweight. It will never be done again. At the same time, Eddie Murphy was selling out arenas with Delirious and Raw. Will never be done again. Yeah. What Eddie Murphy was doing. But what Mike Tyson did in the fight game is like, oh my God, that's unprecedented. There's a difference between legacy in the fight game and legacy in anything else that you do in life, in my opinion, is that you could talk all the smack you want and say, I'm the baddest there is, and raise all the money, get all the Irish people over in Ireland to. But once you get bounced off the canvas by Dustin Poirier, you're like, wow, it's not what I needed. It's not what I wanted. I don't care how much money I'm worth.
I will say
it's not about the money in the fight game, guys. It's not. You have to win that fight. You straight out, if you're going to talk that much smack, you better back it up, is all I'm saying. You could sell as many fights as you want and raise as much pay-per-view money as you want. And I know Joe Rogan would sit here and go, that, he did it. He raised that much money. You have to win the fight.
Backed up a lot of his shit talking along the way.
That's true.
I'll give him that. And this last fight, I actually gained more respect for him as a fighter
after the fact.
After watching how he didn't talk shit, he went out there and was respectful and went out there as a fighter, not as a shit talker, to go out there and face Dustin. And after he was good in loss also. And I not that I like him, but I like him
more now.
I don't like him less. I don't know how to say that better than.
I don't know how to say it better than I don't like.
I get what you're laying down.
But Mendes, am I making sense at all? Like, there's a difference in fight game legacy.
There is.
There is a fight game legacy, man.
There is, and I see what you're saying. I can see both sides, though. I think, obviously,
Mendes, age 40, UFC champ.
Are you coming back, Chad?
Not happening, man.
What if Dan's going to train you?
My life is good.
Come down and train.
Comfortable
I'll talk you
with
into
money. I'm growing multiple brands. One of them with you building.
Imagine
we got
how
some big
much
stuff on the horizon.
I
don't need to get punched anymore.
Again.
But getting punched sucks.
It's not fun, dude.
I got punched yesterday at practice.
This guy's still sparring. He's like, I still spar with the big gloves and little gloves. I'm like, Dan.
Yeah, but nobody's like Hendo, man.
No,
nobody's
he's a special breed.
You know what I love about Hendo? And
I might not like.
I tell this story a bunch.
I didn't enjoy it yesterday.
I tell this story a bunch in private or just when I'm in my everyday life. But I was at Hard Rock one night with Hendo. We were going to Nobu Sushi. And I remember we had some sponsors there, and it was going to be an unbelievable night.
That was during
the porno awards.
Yeah, the porno awards were at
what are they called?
Vegas. I know what you're talking about.
Not BMI. Adult video AVNs.
Yes.
And you had but that had nothing to do with the story. We were at the Center Bar at Hard Rock, which is not on the Strip. Vegas is a fight town. Is there a bigger fight town in the world? Back in the day, there was Lake Tahoe, there was New York City.
Vegas.
Japan is a huge MMA country. But as far as fights towns in the world,
Vegas is the city. It's the best in the world. Yeah, for sure.
We literally were at the Center Bar, Mendes, and we had to walk 75 to 100 yards to Nobu. Within that 75
hours.
Yes, it was.
It literally was like, Hendo, will you sign my napkin? Hendo, will you take a selfie? And they were all calling him Champ. Champ, will you get me a picture? Champ, will you do this? And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And he did not say no to one person. And this is during the SHOT Show, which Hendo's not known as a hunter. It's known as the AVNs, which Hendo's, I don't know.
Might have a couple appearances in there.
You are an actor. You've been in a couple TV shows.
But that's what I love about Hendo, and that's what I love about you, Mendes, because just since you've gotten to Reno, people are like, oh my God, I need my picture. I literally just got a text from Clay's ex-wife.
How long is he going to be in town?
We need to come meet Hendo because they already came over 2 days ago and got your autograph and your picture. Now they want to meet Hendo, but I think that's so cool that you guys have developed this legacy in this career. And I started this off tonight about Hendo having what that guy said is arguably the number one. I don't know how many hundreds of MMA fights or thousands there have been, but it seems like there's one every other day now at the UFC with the way it is now. They say that Hendo's got the number one of all time. You've won fight of the year, Mendes, with Aldo. He's got the number one with Shogun Hu of all time. He's got the number one knockout of all time against Bisping Part 1, and he should have won Bisping Part 2.
I've seen some good knockouts, though.
There's great. Don't get me wrong. It's hearsay, right? There's a bunch of them, but
I think it's just who it is.
We're sitting in the room. We're sitting in the room with the guys that have proven themselves, and I love the humility. And that's what I'm saying, Hendo. I want to end it by this with Hendo and Mendes. Clay, you're on this
We're
too.
ending this now?
Oh, do you want to
2
end
hours
it?
in.
We're only 2 hours in.
I think we got another hour on it.
Okay, well then,
Maybe
bartender,
I gotta go to dinner.
Chad.
Let's milk this.
I am hungry.
Mendes. If
The fuck is that?
Mendes, you've hunted all over the world. You've hunted all over America, North America. What are you missing? What do you want? I know you didn't fail, but you did not counter on you did not get the sheep that you wanted last year. What do you want the most out of this hunting career? Is it a trophy? Is it the camaraderie? Give me both answers. What do you want a 400-inch bull? Do you want a 180-inch desert? Do you want a 192-inch Rocky Mountain? Do you want to go kill a dollar a stone? What do you want the most out of this hunting career?
Same thing I want.
Dude.
UFC belt.
Bingo. No, man, I don't think there's any one specific trophy that you're talking about that I'm like, I have to go do. Like, you got these guys that are just chasing like their slams or, like you said, a 400-inch bull. Don't get me wrong. I would be ecstatic to get any of those. But I think for me, especially after going on that doll sheep hunt last year, dude, that opened my eyes. I mean, obviously I've been a hunter since I was a little kid, and I have always understood the adventure and the memories and the excitement that comes with each and every hunt. But spending 10 days in the backcountry of Alaska, living out of a tent, hiking almost 100 miles in some of the like steepest, craziest terrain, looking over, I think we saw over 150 different sheep, and just pushing through some of the highest of highs and the lowest of lows on a hunt. Like, I don't want anything more than to experience that again. Like, and I didn't even kill a sheep. I didn't get one. And as frustrating as it was, like day 6, day 7, especially getting so close to, dude, we see a ram over there. He looks really good. Takes 4 hours to get close enough to get, like, actually see his age. And then hear the guide say, dude, he's only 7 and they have to be 8, and, or he's, a quarter of an inch short from being full curl. Like, my heart was broken on that hunt probably 4 different times. Yeah. 4 different times where I was just like, seriously, be a 4 or 5 hour stalk in.
Wow.
Climbing, like, obviously I live on the highest peaks, and just to have my heart broken, like, I was so frustrated and so, like, broken down by, like, day 8, day 9, day 10. You hike out. We got out of there at like 2 or 3 in the morning by the time we got back to the truck. We hiked 15 miles the last day, and we get back. It's almost like cutting weight, where you're like, the whole time you're like, God, I can't wait to have this. When I get back, I'm gonna hot shower. Sounds so nice. I'm gonna eat this. I'm gonna drink this. And it's that same feeling of weight cut week. And you get back, and I had this like overwhelming sense of, I don't want to say depression, but it's like a homesick feeling. If you've ever felt that feeling, like, probably the strongest feeling I've ever had. And it's like, I feel like
10 days is a long time.
It is, man. And it becomes home almost. It feels like home after a while. And you come out of that and you get back into the hustle and bustle of real life, and you're like around a bunch of people again, and, having to do everything that normal life is.
I don't think there probably is a certain amount, but most of the regular people out there probably would have, just kind of quit and broke and just said, let's go home after day 5.
Yeah. Well, I mean, a few of our guys in our group, if I would have said, let's go, we probably would have packed up and left. Like, there was a couple of guys that were probably.
And you're saying, though, that is the one hunt that you would like to?
I'm doing it again this year. I'm going back and
Doll sheep.
Doll sheep.
Hendo, if you had to compare a doll sheep to a fighter, same question.
I've never gone on.
Same question. Who do you wish you would have fought before you retired? Let's say you're 40 years old. 38.
Well,
You've told me, Hendo, you've told me that you felt your best 38 to 41.
Yeah.
Who do you want the most?
Well, I'm 50 now.
I know, but when you were 38 to 41, who do you want the most? Is it John Jones? Who is it?
That was the one fight that I was probably the most ready for in my whole career, the best shape, and because of who he was at the time, and the lack of respect I had for him for various reasons, how he portrayed himself as a champ. I wanted to beat his ass, and that's the one fight that I wish I would have had right then, and it's the one fight in the 20-year career I pulled out of.
So John Jones is the doll sheep of the MMA world. That's the thesis of tonight's podcast.
I like it. Write it down.
2 hours to talk.
So you're gonna go get a doll sheep.
That's the goal.
When's that hunt?
Are you gonna?
I didn't get offered the fight again.
What if it comes down in bare knuckles?
I
Would
didn't
you fight John Jones bare knuckles?
When my knee was back,
You would pay to see
I'd
it.
pay big bucks to see
Would
that.
you fight John Jones bare knuckles right now?
yeah,
In a heartbeat.
why not?
Yes. You see an H-bomb.
All right, I said we are going to end it before.
You can't do those stupid kicks that irritate me.
Irritational kicks. Mendes, Hendo, you guys go. Rocky, Merlot, California, Snows, Specs, the entire overall feeling that day. Because I've been on a lot of them, but they're not every day. When you get them, you're just like, oh my gosh, we just waxed that ass. Like that was amazing. They were so right there. What do you say? What do you think about? What's your overall feeling of that hunt? Hendo, you go first.
I'm going to say that was an unbelievable experience for me to be able to do that at that place, and just thank you to you and Rocky for allowing that to happen.
It was incredible, wasn't it?
It was definitely is one of the better memories in my life for sure.
All I'm going to say is, though, you guys were hunting with Chad for 3 or 4 days prior to me getting there. And you killed
what are you trying to say?
You killed like 2 birds. Then I show up, and that happens.
So you're saying you're a good luck charm.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
You want me to go on your doll sheep hunt with you?
Yes.
I'll stay at camp. I'll stay at camp.
No. You got to hike with him.
Yeah.
I did 6 miles up to 10,000 feet on my elk hunt, but not 100 miles.
Mendes, what do you think of a hunt like that? Talk to me. You end it like this by saying what the power of that man. Is it the same as a UFC Mandalay Bay, MGM Grand, Rio de Janeiro crowd? Talk to me about what you're feeling on a hunt like that when you got thousands of geese in your day.
I'll be honest, man. That's what you just said.
If you lose a fight, it's very similar.
Yeah. It's tough to beat. But the excitement, like that night before, and just knowing that there's that many birds, that there is a possibility of that many birds coming in on top of us the next day is like, it's phenomenal. You go to bed, you don't sleep much, you're so excited. But then getting in there before light, and you're sitting there as it's getting light, you can just hear everything starting to sound off behind you. Because, I mean, they weren't a couple 100 yards behind us. I mean, they were close. And that initial lift off, I mean, I'm sure there's...
You feel it.
Oh, dude, it was crazy. You feel that in your chest. And it's phenomenal. That's why we do it, right? I mean,
Crazy.
How, like I said earlier, like how often does somebody get to see that many geese coming in above them? Like, I mean, there was thousands.
You could hunt
Tens
every day
of
in
thousands?
California. You're going to have 30 to 40 days at the most
Yeah.
if you hunt every day.
Dude, it was phenomenal.
If you hunt as much as you guys do or as much as I do, and you get to see that as many times, that day was special.
I've hunted geese with you with Rock one other time, and it was good.
It was good, but it wasn't like
When
that.
you threw him
That was
down in the
next
mud?
level. Yeah.
No,
I
I
had to
smoked
wrestle.
him. I would say that I would say that pretty much if I had to bet everything that I had, I could take both of you
I don't think so.
in a shotgunning contest. You didn't let me finish.
Beer shotgunning?
No, shotgunning, like shooting. Not a fight,
was gonna-
Chad. I'm
I
not
was
trying to
gonna
fight
deny that one
you.
too.
That's Dan Hendo Henderson. That's Chad Money Mendes. That's my brother Clay Belling. That's another episode. of the Foul Life podcast, brought to you by Gerber Gear.
We might have to do that shotgun contest.
We'll try it.
That'd be fun. That'd be fun.
Stay sharp, America. Please continue to support the partners and sponsors that support us here at all of our brands. That includes the Foul Life. This Life Ain't For Everybody, the provider, Jargon Game Calls, Bandit, Avery, Greenhead Gear, where the payment ends. We are truly humbled by all of the support that we get on all of our hunting and outdoor brands. Please continue to support our military. Say thank you to a first responder, a military veteran, or active duty military. We are so privileged, and we are never entitled to be an outdoorsman, a hunter, a provider, a conservationist. We are not entitled to this lifestyle. We are so blessed to live it. I'm Chad Belding. Tom, Jake, hit that button. This band is called 2 a.m. Logic from the great state of Idaho. The song is called My Foul Life. I'm getting ready to put the smack down on Chad Mendes with the help of Dan Henderson. Thank you all for joining us for another great episode of the Foul Life Podcast.